Welcome everybody to a career learning and development hosted event. We're super excited today for the entrepreneurial journey. I'll take 1 second here. So this event created in collaboration with our fabulous BCom department. Hopefully, I think I see a few BCom faces here today, but obviously this is a topic of high interest. So recognizing there's a lot of folks here today from all sorts of programs and stages of their program. First and foremost, most importantly, wanted to acknowledge I'm coming to you today from my home office, so the traditional unceded territories of the Wasanich peoples, and Royal Roads, who I believe many of you are at today, is the campus itself is located on the traditional lands of the Lekwungen and Songhees and Esquimalt nations. What a fabulous campus, and how fortunate are we to work and play and live on these beautiful lands, and a particularly stunning day as well. So welcome everybody. So I will run through the agenda really quick. Like I said, breadth of folks here today: prospects, alumni, community members, current students representing all sorts of different programs. Fabulous, most importantly, fabulous panelists, 4 fabulous panelists to speak to you about their entrepreneurial journey. We're going to move through some facilitated questions from our panelists, and at the end, we're going to carve out some time for Q&A from you, the attendees, and we'll really try to cut at that time because I know that's super important. So if you can hold your questions to the end, please do so. There's also obviously a chat along the way, but again, hold your burning questions to the end, and we'll try to manage that and ensure that you get those heard. We are recording this session, and I'm just going to start off right now. I'm going to run through some really quick panelist introductions. I will do this, and then we'll get into the panelists actually speaking to their entrepreneurial journey. So first, Katie Gamble, founder and CEO of NatureBee, which is a small local organization with sustainable home goods in the sustainable home goods industry. So BC 30 under 30, and a BCom alum, but a UVic BCom alum. So welcome, Katie. Next, we have Ernest Bednars. He is the founder and principal of Malahat Valuation Group. It's also a local organization. He's also a chartered business valuator specializing in business valuations of private companies. And of course, he is an RRU BCom alum, and we're super excited to hear a little bit more about his industry today. Corey McPherson, co-founder. Corey wears many hats. He's a co-founder of Local Urban Bites, which is a local meal prep company. I use them, they're fabulous. Co-founder of QChat, as well as he is RRU associate faculty. I think you're even a PhD candidate, right, Corey? You hold a 9-to-5 job with RRU. You're the Associate Director of Planning and Implementation, and also you are a BCom RRU alum as well, so fabulous. And last but absolutely not least, founder and CEO of Productivity, Alexandra Kulas. She is a top 40 under 40, so as well as a BCom alum from RRU. So like I said, what an impressive panel, and we're super excited to get into this today. So I'm going to kick it off with the first question. So briefly, can you tell us about your business and what inspired you to become an entrepreneur? And maybe I'll do reverse order. Alex, do you want to jump in for this one?
Sure, sounds good. So hi everyone, my name is Alex Kulis. I'm the founder and CEO of Productivity. So we are a licensed childcare academy and co-working center. We opened our first location in 2022, and now we're on our 6th location and scaling rapidly across Canada. I basically had never really thought about being an entrepreneur, which is ironic because I did the entrepreneurial class and program at Royal Roads. I see Jeff Archer here. Hi, Jeff. And so, yeah, I'd never really thought about it. But after I graduated from Royal Roads, I went on to do some business consulting and advising. I ended up starting my own marketing agency in 2015. I scaled that up and sold that in 2021. And that's when I kind of realized that I was passionate about trying to solve a problem for working parents where they feel like they can't excel at being a parent and then also being an entrepreneur. So Productivity has, like I said, the 6 locations now. So we have licensed childcare on 1 floor. We have a co-working center on the 2nd floor, so parents can come and go as they please. We have a lot of people that aren't parents too. And then we also do like a licensed kitchen as well. So think about like meals for kids, meals for the parents. So basically, it's creating a big community within a center. And so that's something I'm really passionate about. And yeah, just happy to be here.
Maybe Katie, you want to jump in?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. So Katie, founder of NatureBee, and my whole business journey started when I went to Gustafson School of Business, and in the final semester, we had to choose like a project to complete and go through the entire cycle of like starting up a company. And that happened to be NatureBee. And I didn't know at that time what it would become, but basically we started going to farmers markets and we were just like seeing if things would sell and whatnot, and we were selling out and there was like this demand for our product, and so we grew that all the way. It's been 6 years now, and yeah, we've got a full team and we sell kind of across the world, which is really exciting. But yeah, I think what really inspired me is just like knowing what kind of impact I can make and like choose the journey and the people that I hire. So for me, it's been, yeah, a really fun journey. I still don't know what's going to happen each day, and it's a learning experience, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it. So that's where I'm at.
Amazing. Ernest, do you want to step in?
Good afternoon, or I guess good morning. Yeah, so my name is Ernest, and I run Malahat Valuation Group with a team of appraisers and evaluators. I'm a CBV, a Chartered Business Evaluator, and I started my journey at Royal Roads in 2000 and graduated in 2001. Prior to that, I've already had sort of small little service businesses that I was running since I was a teenager. So I was kind of always on that entrepreneurial path and wanted to work for myself and sort of be in charge of my own destiny. And attending Royal Roads was part of my sort of post-secondary education journey, and it really sort of focused my attention to business, the language of business, the business frameworks, and how the formalized structure of business. Before I was just doing things as anybody would shoot, figuring things out on the job, so to speak. And since Royal Roads, I've owned a number of companies in different industries. We've bought and sold, started companies from scratch. We had about a 15 to 20 year sort of history of that. And that led us to the latest company, which is Malahat Valuation Group. Took all the lessons along the way, all the things I didn't like of the businesses I've owned before, and professional services was something that really spoke to me and still lets me engage on the business side as a business evaluator. Discovering the journey of each engagement, how the companies got started, how they got to where they are, and of course trying to provide what the value to somebody else would be in an open marketplace. And these valuations, of course, are done for myriad of reasons. Some of the things that come to mind is transactions, but there's a lot of valuation done for tax, for litigation support, acquisition, sale, succession planning, and such. So it's not always for transactional reasons, but there's always a number that it needs to be put on a business for various reasons.
Thank you. Last but not least, Corey.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Corey McPherson. So I'm the co-founder of Local Urban Bites, which is a meal kit delivery company that operates within the Lower Vancouver Island area. We serve all 13 municipalities with the exception of Salt Spring Island. Started that business in 2016 with my business partner. Well, 2015, we operationalized it fully in 2016. Spent about a year basically piloting the service and seeing if there'd be uptake, and not just to family and friends, because although they are your first set of customers, usually they're also the ones that are not the ones they're not the ones that you're ultimately going to be selling to over the long term. So piloted things through 2015, and then 2016 we received our first customer in July, and since then it's sort of been a great journey. We've managed to make millions of dollars in revenue since starting in 2016, which has been a wonderful journey there. And then QChat Support Association is a not-for-profit that I also co-founded in 2019, which has about 20 volunteers across the province. It's the only LGBT Q2S plus peer support program that operates within the province of British Columbia. So there was a huge need at the time. and it actually originated out of a medical school project with my co-founder. So there was some interesting components there, and having it as a not-for-profit piece allowed us to gain access to several different forms of funding. Our most recent funding grant came from Women and Gender Equity Canada, which was around 150,000, and we were able to secure an executive director and hire some co-op students and whatnot. And for my own for-profit business, we've had many employees over the years, have a full stack team to keep things going. So what inspired my journey as an entrepreneur ever since I was very small, I always found certain opportunities, such as during the Pokemon card era, as an example, buying those packs and then selling to the kids. And I actually got in trouble from the principal. Stealing kids' lunch money is what I was accused of. And I was like, no, this is a market enterprise. This is, this is the way it should be. Yeah, so I mean, the thing that inspired me to become an entrepreneur is just like going out, creating your own thing, and sort of keeping that drive from the beginning all the way to the end. So it's always exciting.
Thanks. So second question for you, for all of you. So how did your experiences and learnings from the BCom program that you attended contribute to the development and success of your business? And perhaps there's some specific skills or insights from the program that you found particularly valuable. I will let, maybe I'll let one of you jump in first.
I can go.
I mean, yeah,
Oh.
go ahead, Kate. Alex, go ahead. No.
Yeah, so when I did the program, it was 2012, I want to say, yeah, a few years ago. One thing I really found valuable though was just having the close group. So my best friends, the bridesmaids in my wedding, like everyone has stayed really close, and a lot of my friends now are entrepreneurs. And so building a network within the program was amazing, but then also being able to have that network now where we're business owners, we can vent to each other, we actually get it. That's like a different level of friendship, I feel like. And that's been really nice. But I even just found like the hands-on like program, even the capstone project, being able to write a business plan has been such a valuable skill set as an entrepreneur now. I can, ChatGPT helps a lot more now than, we didn't have that then. But I think that just knowing the foundations of what makes a viable business and how to actually look at it from every angle has been something that I've used. I've used my same like book that we used in the capstone program still to this day. I have it in my office. And I think that just having that really good, strong foundation and framework is important, but also the people that you meet in the program has definitely been the most influential for me.
Yeah, I would also pick up on the same thing. Echo a lot of what Alex said. In particular, like looking at like the concept of a minimum viable product. The Lean Startup as an example. That was one of the books that I think actually Jeff Archer was one of the readings that Jeff Archer recommended as part of the capstone course and the entrepreneurship course. So it basically sort of advocates for the idea that you're not looking for perfection, you're looking to generate something that you can put out to the market and sort of test right away. So that was one component for me that stood out from the BCom program. And then to echo what Alex said around your network, because the folks coming into the BCom program, at least in the cohort that I was in, they're all C-suite executives now in various different large companies. And so we've all sort of, ventured off on our own journeys, but at the same time, like it's very entrepreneurial focused. And so for me, that was a huge support piece. The other thing too that I would mention is one thing that constantly stood out for me is sort of like the concept of the break-even analysis and the finance. So that was always a really strong tool, an accounting tool that sticks with me to this day. And so something that I continually bring up with students about like number of actual units of to sell something that in order to be able to break even, as well as the total dollar value that's associated with it. So when you're looking to build out products and services.
For me, I was the third class through at Royal Roads when the program was first developed, when Royal Roads became a business school. And so there was a lot of, I think, growing pains. And this was going back to Brent Mainprice days, who was the entrepreneurial lead for the program at the time. But what really stood out for me and why I picked Royal Roads over UVic at the time was because, and I don't know if that's the case still or not, each program was taught by someone from industry. So they weren't necessarily professors or people that were great at teaching, but they were current. If it was a marketing course, it was someone that worked or ran a marketing firm. So I found the experience from, learning directly from the people doing the work rather than just theoretical sort of, things from a textbook. And, both to what Corey and has said is, being able to develop a business plan, test it out, build the financials around that, break-even points, return on investment, and so on. I use that in my daily work all the time. And it was a well-rounded program. It covered everything from, business systems, processes, marketing, research, development, and also, of course, the financial end of it. So it wasn't, I recall it, leaving school and felt pretty prepared to sort of tackle any sort of business problem at the time.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to echo basically what everyone just said. But like for me, I always think back to being in the BCom program, and I did go to the UVic one, but I know that there's a lot of crossover and things that happen. But just like Nature wouldn't exist if I didn't go to the business school. I would have no company. So I always like go back and reflect and be like, it was so important for me to be there and go through the entire process of like creating a marketing plan, a finance plan, like going through the minimum viable product. And like I went through the entire process to build out a company, and then I successfully was able to launch. And I think, if I did that independently, it would take me a lot longer. There was no deadlines, nothing that had to be done, no extra resources or anything like that. And I think like the biggest thing again that I've taken out of it is those connections and people that I can continue to rely on. Hey, I need somebody to do marketing. Oh, well, somebody in the business program is an executive at a marketing company. They can help me and different things like that. So yeah, there's just so much value in being able to go through the process and have those like connections and people with similar mindsets. I think is just like so important and so key. So yeah.
And that's a beautiful segue. So next question would be, who influenced your journey the most? Did you use a mentor? Do you recommend using a mentor? Maybe I'll start off with Ernest, and then I'll let you guys go from there.
Yeah, and I looked at that question, and my recollection goes back now 23 years, so it's a little dated, but the faculty at the time, and really that gentleman I mentioned in my last segment, Brent Mainprize, was kind of leading the whole thing, and what they did at the time was we were, aside from learning the concepts and classwork, Brent also brought in companies, real life companies that we could engage with to help them with whether it was a marketing issue or business plan writing or financial development, that kind of thing. So we got hands-on with real companies and real operations. And one that sort of stood out for me at the time, I think I was involved in 2 or 3 of them, was JF Ventures, and we actually ended up sort of being hired on contract to continue to work with them while we're still in school, the team that I was part of with this. So that was kind of cool.
I can kind of touch on mentorship because I did a call yesterday where we talked all about this, and sometimes I consider them mentors, but sometimes I just consider them like business friends and people that have helped me. And I think it's like the reason why there's so much success and so much support out there that we just need to find. And it might take some time, but I think like through the business program, I was referred to somebody who owns a company, and they were able to provide all these resources for me that they were like 4 stages ahead of me. And it just helped so much with those like bigger decisions that were coming up on inventory and organization and ads and all that like I didn't have the knowledge of, but they did. And then from there, they were able to refer me to the next person who had that connection. And so I just think mentorship or business friends, whatever we want to call them, are just like so important to keeping like mental stability and also just like growth and support. So yeah, I really, really love having mentorship. And I think it's so important, but it can be hard to find. And sometimes it's like a isolating world as an entrepreneur. But I think once you find that one person that you can talk to about similar things, it's really key.
I think that's why I have decided to co-found companies as opposed to do it on my own, is because Katie, what you're mentioning is can feel very like solitary. You're the one making all the calls, you're the one sort of you have sort of the fun, and sometimes you're directionless. Like, so you do need to have some kind of a support system of some kind. And with your co-founder, the great thing is find someone smarter than you to be your co-founder. And so you basically being able to, and who has a complementary skill set, because you each bring, sort of different things. So I think I could probably talk everyone's ear off about the importance of choosing the right co-founder and what that looks like. But I feel like we could save that for another talk. But aside from, sort of the co-founder piece, I also think that the support group that you end up nurturing throughout your journey in your undergraduate degrees. So in my case, it was the BCom at Royal Roads. A lot of those folks, they went off and did their own things, but I know that I can call them and ask them a question, despite their busy schedule, where they're at, the kinds of deals that they're engaged in. Sorry, there are ways to be able to lean on them, and even in sort of circles like this, right? You're in a sort of panel discussion, you're connecting with like all you folks online. Like, I would definitely highly encourage anybody on this call to reach out to me to LinkedIn, and if you ever have any questions, like, I would absolutely be happy to help you in any capacity that I can.
Yeah, I'll go last and echo pretty much all the same sentiments. I think one thing that was really helpful when we were in the program was having, like Ernest said, having guest speakers come in that actually had real businesses or had gone through the program. We had one speaker come in. I remember him telling us, like, you guys need to take LinkedIn seriously. You need to have your LinkedIn presence sorted out. And so he had like volunteered to help us with our LinkedIn profiles. It's changed a bit since 2012, obviously, but I think that having a good, strong professional presence is so important, especially not only in business, but just as you build your personal brand. I've gone through the co-founder journey, also exiting a co-founder journey, which is also very good that you talked about finding the right co-founders, Corey, because I'm going through a very nice legal thing right now with that. But I do have a really good partner now in my business. And I think having the right people around you, I always say if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And so what I've really done, we have 110 employees now. And so in our senior leadership team, I am not the doer of all the things anymore, which can be challenging because when you start a business, you kind of do everything. And so now I've really stepped more into that CEO role and being able to step back, but having the right people in the right seats that you trust is so important. And so I look at mentorship not only from what I grew in the program, but also just in my business and how I've now been able to hire people with the right skill sets. I never liked accounting in school, so definitely outsource that. But I also feel like just having like the right network, regardless of whether it's personal or professional, they can blend both worlds. And I found that the people that I rely on most are still people that I met in the BCom program.
Fabulous. So this is, I mean, we've touched upon this question already, but if anybody has anything else kind of to build on. So what role has networking and community support played in your entrepreneurial success, and any advice to aspiring entrepreneurs on how to build their own support networks? And in addition to that, like, are there any entrepreneur groups or networking groups that you belong to that you might recommend an aspiring entrepreneur should join? And Alex, why don't we start with you this time?
Okay. So yeah, I think there's kind of like two versions of networking. There's like your friends that you have online, then people that you know in real life. So what I found is I've moved a few times since university. And so always just trying to find like the local connections and business groups. You kind of have to feel out what feels right for you. A lot of times groups, you'll go to them and it's not the greatest, but sometimes you'll meet one or two people that are really great. LinkedIn, again, has been such a valuable one for me in connecting with like my past peers, people that I'm looking to kind of get advice from. And then I also, like Corey had said, like I offer that to other people as well. If you want to send me a message and ask a question, like for sure. I think the biggest thing is that just being open to it. Networking can feel a little bit awkward and a little bit uncomfortable, but half of being an entrepreneur is just putting yourself out there and being able to pick yourself back up again. And so the more people you can put in that kind of safety zone with your network is really important.
I think I'd also build off of that too. Like, Alex, I think you bring up some really good points. And one thing that I am constantly saying to friends and people around me is like, when you go to a network event, like, you turn it on. Like, you are not necessarily in your comfort zone. So, but you have an opportunity to reinvent yourself every single time you go to a networking event, sticking true to your brand, however. So like you want to go out, you're not, you're maybe positioning yourself as a bit more extroverted than what you're normally comfortable with. And the thing is that nobody knows how uncomfortable you are with your level of extroversion. So I would say that, you're your biggest critic and your own worst enemy when it comes to choosing to meet various different people for other opportunities. And the other thing I'd say is like never go into a networking event with a transaction in mind. I would always go into an event with the opportunity to sort of explore a lot of what they are doing, what they're offering, and people love to talk about themselves. So if you give them the opportunity to do it, you can oftentimes find some way to connect again. And I would say it's kind of like the 3-4 touch point rule. Like you're not transactioning in the first, second, or potentially even the third time you're interacting, you're waiting for that. And again, to Alex's, I think, point is like, you find out when and if the comfort level and appropriateness exists with the transaction that you're looking to achieve. So if you're looking for some marketing advice and you're looking to sort of understand where things are at, you might ask curious questions, but you're certainly not engaging in a transaction. People don't like to be transactioned with very often. Think about it as like kind of a cold call. People don't like that.
Building relationships is the key to networking rather than, like you say, trying to sell something, right? And I see a great sort of movement towards local, at least in marketing and efforts and so on. It depends on the scale of your business and what you're trying to do. Having a strong presence in your local market first and then expanding out is important. So that physical in-person networking events. There was a time during the COVID times that wasn't a thing. Now those things are coming back, or if not, most of them have now. So, get out into, the chamber events. There's a bunch of them in every municipality. If you're inclined, like BNI, but LinkedIn is sort of key for business to business these days. So like, Instagram and Facebook, those are more sort of social sites, not so much business. I guess it also depends on the type of business you're running, but be mindful of also what you post online on your personal social media accounts. Because now with AI, it's very easy for someone to do a very quick scan of sort of who you are and what you believe in or what you've posted. So something that you might have said 10 or 15 years ago, or it will come up, and that may affect business. So a lot of people, they think they're anonymous online and comments and things like that, but I've seen that come and bite people in the butt.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with what everyone says, but I have 3 points that I would just like to share. The first one is that the Forum for Women is a really great resource that I've found has been like super supportive in finding like grants or, different women in business who can like support in that way. So that's a great resource. And they have like a wide variety of courses that you can take on like finance or, AI and different things like that that are usually offered free of charge, but they're a really great resource. And then the next thing is what Ernest said about attending local award events. Like I'm always signing up for, I went to like the Viatech Awards and the Chamber of Commerce Awards, and you never know whose table you're going to be sat at. And it's just a really great way that everyone's in the same position where they're just there to, support community and engage, but you just might have a connection there that surprises you. So it's like a really great way to go to a networking event, and then you're seated at a table where you don't have to force any conversation. It's just happening organically. And then the last one with LinkedIn, I find always too, if you're going to reach out to someone on LinkedIn, make it like have a purpose. Maybe this is just me, but I find when people are like, hey, I'd love to have a meeting with you, and there's no context or there's nothing like about it. I love when somebody comes to me and be like, hey, I'm starting a business. It's a product-based business. And like, these are the 3 issues that I'm having. Would you be open to a 30-minute call where I can like ask you these questions? And 9 times out of 10, I'm absolutely open to that if I have the time. And I'd love to jump on, and then I get to like help guide someone through that. So it's a really great thing to do, but just make sure you provide some sort of context to the entrepreneur that you're reaching out to or the business person, because a generalized one sometimes can just get thrown under the rug, and it doesn't really provide any like value. So yeah, if it's like specific, love that, and I'll actually read it on LinkedIn. So yeah, even when I'm reaching out, that's what I do as well. So yeah.
Great advice. I'm going to jump into just a couple of panelist-specific questions here. So this next one's for Alexandra and Katie. So can you share some insights into the challenges and successes you've experienced as a female entrepreneur in your respective industries? Maybe we'll jump back to Katie.
Yeah, totally. I think, I mean, the first thing is that people always say, like, women in business have like less support and all of that kind of stuff. And yes, it can be true, but I think also like I've been able to just find that support and find women in business. And Victoria is quite the hub for like really epic women in business, and like everyone's always there to like support and reach out. The Forum for Women has been a phenomenal resource. And so I think like if you're doing something cool, just you're doing it. There's no need to like shy away that you're like a female in business and things like that. Like that's never been a block that I've allowed put into my mind. It's always like I am capable of doing it. So I'm gonna do it. And I also think something that I always like, it's not necessarily being a female in business, but being somebody younger. It's really funny if I go to different events, like, and my mom is there or somebody older is there, they'll always assume that they run the business. And so my mom always be like, oh no, it's actually Katie. And they're like, oh, okay. And so I think just being like, yep, like people of any age, any background, anything like that can operate a business. So just being really strong, to your passions and your values, I think is really important as a female in business, but as anyone in business. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think the thing that I always get a little bit frustrated with is when people have to label themselves as like a woman entrepreneur or a female entrepreneur. It's like, I'm just an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter what I am. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm running a business. And so I think there can almost be some toxicity in some of those cultures with boss babes and things like that. No offense to anyone if that's your thing. But I think that, yeah, we have to not make it just about the gender side of it, but sometimes it doesn't come into play. Like I've had meetings where I've gone in with a past business partner and they thought that I was like the assistant or that he was in charge. I think that we sometimes like we operate in a world where competence is assumed for men and questioned for women. And so especially when I, had newborn twins and was trying to open a business, that was a little bit challenging. People look at you like, how are you going to do all of this? But I think that one thing that women are really good at is multitasking. And I think that, in my journey, I've just found that I use that as a strength, not as a weakness. And I think that surrounding yourself with those right people is really important. And it's always fun to prove people wrong. So a lot of the times in my meetings, I go in as Alex, even though my real name's Alexandra. And so they don't know if it's a girl or a guy coming. So obviously I pleasantly surprise them when it's the other way around. But I think really just leaning into it and, being a woman in business, it's really taught me like resilience, empathy. I think that women lead a bit differently in that sense. And one thing that I've been focused on in this business is just about building community and doing business with people that I like. And a lot of them are women. I think probably 90% of the people that work for me are women right now. But it's also just making sure that you're a champion of no matter what gender you are. I think that taking the label and the stigma off of it is really important too.
Thank you. Moving on to Ernest. So could you tell us a little bit about the world of business valuation, firstly as a career, because it's a really interesting and career path that I think a lot of people don't think about, and also the importance of business valuation for entrepreneurs as well.
So I kind of tripped into this career. When I owned one of the previous companies, I was in a motor vehicle accident. I got a bit injured and had to go to rehab and things like that. So not spending a lot of time running the company at the time. So the business had negative effects in terms because of my absence. And my attorney at the time said, well, because I wasn't, a T4 employee, to quantify the loss for the time away, we weren't able to do that just by, T4 statements. So we said, well, we need to get a business valued to see what the value was, at the date of the accident and what the value is now. And the difference is the loss. I was like, oh, business value, well, who does that? Having gone to business school previously, I thought I would have, heard this profession, but unfortunately, it's one of those ones that kind of plays in the shadows. You hear about accounting and other professions like that, but never heard of a business valuer. Anyway, long story short, I got the business valued and settled that case and moved on with my life. And a few, probably 10 years later or so, and we had sold our latest company and we were looking at what we were going to do next. And, took some of the lessons from Royal Road, some brainstorming activities that I remember from doing in team environments before, and one of the things that shook out was professional services, and that kernel that was planted there, many years ago. I started looking down this road of what's involved in business valuation, what do you need, and who does it, and how is it done, and so on. And the other one that kind of spoke to me was also real estate appraisal. So we researched that as well. So I ended up pursuing the CBV designation, and that's through the Canadian Institute of Chartered Business Valuers. So it's an additional set of courses, and took about 3.5 years to complete. And because of my BCom, that was an entry point into the program. So there's two pathways. You either have a business degree, or you have a accounting designation first, and then that allows you to enter the CICB program of studies. So predominantly this profession is filled with accountants. So they're accountants first, and prior to the amalgamation of CPAs, there was different classes of accountants, CAs, CMAs, and CGAs. So the CAs, like the upper echelon of the accountants, generally were the ones that got their CBV designation. And it was a profession that was born out of the 70s, when the capital gains tax came in on D-Day. So originally it was the CAs that were doing the business valuations at the time, and then that sort of became its own institute and discipline and its own designation over the years. So about 30% or so of CBVs are coming from a business stream, and then still about 70 from the accounting stream. I really enjoy the work because I'm able to apply both my business background and my previous studies, and also the financial analytics that were sort of bolted on from this CICBV programs. We work sometimes directly for the clients, but in many cases we are referred by accountants and lawyers to value companies, because they're usually the ones that are dealing with those triggering events that take place for someone needing a business valuation. Rarely does an entrepreneur or business owner wake up one day and say, "Oh, I need my business value to wonder what it's worth." There's usually something happening. Either they're getting sued, they're suing somebody, they're getting divorced, or they're thinking about succession or taking on some kind of a transaction. So we don't advertise directly to customers. We build relationships with the referral sources. That's where probably the majority of the work comes. But we also have a pretty strong presence, online through our website, Google AdWords, and all that stuff. So when sometimes an accountant will tell a business owner, "Look, you need a business valuation because we're doing this corporate reorganization." And the question sometimes is, "Well, do you have one?" And they're like, "Well, we don't know one, or we don't have a relationship with." So people go online and search. So you have to have a presence, but I could advertise to a business owner for 10 years, and they may never need our services until some triggering event takes place. So we focus our efforts on building relationships with the referral sources. Some of the work we do is for startups, when they're raising capital as well, to provide valuation sort of context, sort of on a pro forma basis. But that's a very small part of our practice. But what we do a little different here than what my competitors do. A lot of CBVs work inside accounting firms like KPMG, Thorntons of the world. There's some individual practitioners, but we put actually multi-disciplines that are complementary to each other under the one roof. So I head up the business valuation division, but we also have a commercial real estate appraisal division that's head up by my partner, and equipment, because when companies own real estate, it's generally commercial in nature, and sometimes they need those things valued at the same time because the company owns the real estate, so it's part of the value of the equity of the shares. So we can do that within our company, under one roof, one engagement letter, usually a little quicker, a little easier from the fee perspective as well. So that's sort of where some of that entrepreneurial learning has slanted my way of looking at the industry a little different than what was traditionally done. And that's kind of what's helped our success to date.
Thank you. And last kind of formal question to Corey, specifically, so you wear lots of hats. You're co-founder of a couple of entrepreneurial businesses, associate faculty. You hold a full-time staff position at RRU. So I think it'd be great for everybody to hear how you manage your entrepreneurial endeavors as well as your other priorities, your 9 to 5 job.
Yeah, I think to what Katie and Alex were saying is that multitasking is a thing. You are limited by the number of hours in the day, which means that you need great people working for you or working around you. So I would not be able to do these different things if I didn't have other people helping to support in one way, in one capacity or another. So we have like our executive director, for instance, through QChat Support Association. My co-founder, Alyssa, she is taking the vast majority of the operational sort of role with the business currently and sort of working in that way. For me, we talk about sort of like, what are we going to do when we grow up? Basically, after we're done these ventures, it's like for me, it's about academia and like really getting involved with students and being able to work with them. It's an infectious energy that you get with the BComs and the BBAs and the master students and whatnot. So it's really kind of neat to be able to sort of talk about your own journey and be able to talk about how the theory either relates or doesn't relate, because a lot of the time theory is, while it's a reflection of sort of the phenomena that's happening in the real world, it sometimes misses out on the nuance that occurs actually in the real world. So it's great to be like, this theory is great here. However, there are these very vital components that are missing. So for example, like when we talk about like marketing, print media for the industry that I'm in just does not work, but that took a lot of throwing tens of thousands of dollars at different types of marketing initiatives that were of a print media nature to see what sticks. And unfortunately, nothing stuck except for editorials. Editorials seem to be the by far the biggest sort of draw for businesses looking, for my business anyways, when it came to interest within the company, as opposed to providing an ad in a written piece. And I think most people would probably agree, I think on this panel, that ads generally are not that great when it comes to providing some kind of a promotional piece where it's like a discounted, hey, this many dollars off for this particular item. It's more about, hey, this is a mover and a shaker in the industry. They're doing this locally. Like, look at all the great news and look at all the different things that they're doing sort of at the local level. When there's sort of that authentic editorial component, it really helps in a marketing perspective. So this is just an example of some of the learnings that have come from me in that regard. But yeah, wearing all these hats is great because I get to dabble in all these different projects across the day. So this sort of transitioned me into, really sort of like the academia sort of focused area. So I'm doing my PhD, which is already mentioned by Robin, at the University of Waterloo. But I got started really in the BCom program, and that's sort of what inspired me to go down the environment and business or the sustainability management route with my PhD journey. So yeah, great people around you, great network, great support system at home. Just involving yourself with, the people that are going to lift you up. And I really do feel like you are sort of the culmination of the people that you surround yourself with. So I'd say surround yourself with, the top 5 people that really sort of where you want to see yourself in the end, right? So whether that is people that you look up to, whether or not it's people that really provide sort of the empathetic edge that you need to function as a very high functioning individual in society. Whatever it is that is important to you, surround yourself with the people that can elevate you. And then from a mentorship perspective, I think I just want to go back to that really quickly, because I'd say that to varying degrees, I have mentors all around me in various different capacities, and I think it is about sort of having that support group and going out and doing all these different networking events that allow you to have access to that. So the networking events, to what people have already said, I just say go out to every single thing that you can, and within the confines of the 24-hour day and the time that you have in a month, and just put yourself out there, and just remember that you're your own worst critic. So people are not assessing you the way that you think that they're assessing you. In fact, oftentimes they don't even care. So just don't let that be the limitation, your own self-limitation. So be the thing that gets in your way. That's it.
Great advice. Okay, well, that's fantastic. I think there's much more to say. I know we could probably have 5 sessions on this topic, but let's open this up to Q&A from the attendees at this time. And I was going to say, while we're working through the Q&A too, if the panelists are comfortable sharing their maybe their LinkedIn handle or contact information in the chat as we go, because we might not get to everybody's questions, but we will try. Hands up or chat, whatever works for you. And I see a first hand up from Dion.
Yeah, so Katie, Alex, Corey, and Ernest, thank you so much. Inspiring stories and congratulations. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. I have a sort of a broad question, but how did you folks determine your competitive advantage, or how do you think about that?
I'll jump in real quick. I think of it as providing better value for the dollar that the customer is spending. Can we solve the problem quicker, faster, and cheaper than our competitors? And can we move faster? Can we remove friction and efficiencies? And that's kind of what drives us here. We're kind of a blend between an IT company and business valuations, the production of the widget that we do here. But what can we? How can we implement our system so they're as much automation as possible, and to move things too quickly to be able to do more with a smaller team.
Awesome, thank you.
I would say for us, like if I'm being like very straightforward, like beeswax wraps, they were already being done. So how are we going to be different? And so genuinely somebody just approached us and said, hey, could you customize these beeswax wraps for us? Could we put our logo onto your beeswax wraps and could you make them? And we were like, we're not going to say no. And so my mom literally did all the research and she was like, yeah, we can get custom fabric, Katie, like, da, da, da. And we did that. And now it's like a 40% of our business is custom wraps. So really just listening to what the customer wants. And genuinely that's exactly what we did. And we still do, because they were like, we can't get this anywhere else. So can we get it from you? And we were like, we're going to make it happen. And now we do custom like Swedish dishcloths and tablets, and like our whole lineup can be customized. But yeah, it's really just listening to what the customer wants and can't find somewhere else. So yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I feel like, competition is a healthy part of business. I think it makes us better to have competition. In my industry, like the idea of daycare versus co-working are not new concepts, that bringing them all together is what was. And so the biggest thing that we found just with being able to stay competitive in a marketplace that's kind of strange is that just making sure that you have a really great member experience is the most important thing. So our customers and their values are really aligned to flexibility. They're willing to pay more if they have like the convenience. And so we've really centered our whole business model about how can we add value, how can we make someone's day better. And that's really what's had us getting return clients, but then also looking at referrals, which has been a huge source of our business. And so we've been really lucky that way that, we listen, we spend a lot of time reflecting. In an industry that you've never been in, it can be challenging. But I definitely feel like if you're doing everything from like the customer centered point of view, the customers will come because you're listening to what they actually need.
Great.
Yeah.
Good.
Very. I mean, I would echo what everybody else has said here, and I would also add too that in 2016, for my particular company, like local Urban Bites, the meal kit delivery game was very weak across Canada, actually, and so we were able to jump into a space that was sort of not really tapped. That being said, though, we had an education campaign that basically was going to be a very expensive campaign. We needed to educate the customer and why the meal kit plan, why you were going to pay a premium, and oftentimes what people would view as a significant premium for something they could just go to the grocery store and buy on their own. So that was a huge issue for us initially. And so when our competitors came in, talking like to support basically what Katie and Alex have said, is that they actually spent all the money educating customers on what a meal kit was. And then we just had to do it better than they did when it came to providing the local ingredients and being able to provide the customer-centric approach. We provided like fresher food because we're literally located in the area. So you were going to get stuff that was not shipped from Ontario right here locally in BC, and you're also going to support BC consumers and particularly like local Victoria farmers. So for us, it was a bit of we just had to go get those clients. So we would do door knocking. We would go and we would put flyers, not flyers, but door hangers. So people actually had to interact directly with the marketing piece every single time. And then we had to communicate our brand promise immediately from that. So it was a bit of a, and then I suppose the other thing I would say is that constantly being aware of what your competition is doing, because you need to not only be strong in following immediately, or you also need to be capitalized on areas that you can become a leader. So in areas that they're not looking at, you have a responsibility to your employees and to your business to do it better than they can do. And so it's a constant process. So if you do not know what your top 5-10 competitors are doing, either from a direct or indirect perspective, like you're not really doing your job. I feel like as an entrepreneur, you should know really, really quickly what it is that they're doing and where they're going to go next.
Great insights. Thank you, and congratulations to each of you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have time for a couple more questions. I'm gonna read a question from Michael. What was the hardest part about getting your business started, and what keeps you up at night? Anyone?
Money and money. Those are the two. I would say definitely going from my last business where it was very service-based, I didn't have a lot of overhead, to now, I'm looking at expensive leases, having staff on site, insurance, all of those costs added up really quickly. And so finding the right spaces to be able to justify an expensive build out was hard. And then also now just having this many employees and so many moving parts, it's that cash flow piece that, we're 3 years in, it's always going to be, I think, a bit of a issue where, having systems and operations to streamline that, but money for sure and access to capital has always been a challenge.
I can echo that, but then also add in, so like obviously money, how are you going to start it? A product-based business, we needed the cash flow. So I went in like competitions and grants to get that. And we're a bootstrap business, so we haven't had external funding yet, but I know that that's also an area that, can be hard for growth and things like that. So we're figuring that out right now. And then it's just inventory management for us as a product-based business, like getting in the right inventory at the right time and all of that. So those are like the hardest parts of it for me.
Cash flow is the lifeline of every business. So that is the number one thing that's required when you're starting any business, whether it's, your own money, your friends and family, or external financing. At some point, you're going to need cash to get anything off the ground. In our world that we play in now, it's professional designations, right? So having the right credentials, the designation in place, and establishing a market presence. So building those relationships with, other business owners, other business organizations, accountants, lawyers, etc. So, no matter what business you start, they take time to incubate, develop processes, systems, and get known for what you do and what value you offer to your customers and where they come from. So yeah, capital and time.
I would say for me, it was you had to make a decision between profitability and customer acquisition, rapid customer acquisition, and you also needed to make the determination of what that. So again, talking on the cash flow perspective, you're limited. If you do not have the money to sort of finance things right from the get-go, you need to find creative ways. So I worked full time at my position to be able to fund the current venture, and my business partner went full-time into the business without that funding. So she actually lived with me at the time in order to be able to make this happen. So you find ways to get it done, and so it was that piece. So we wanted to be we had a real strong requirement to wanting to be profitable right from the get-go to be able to support her from a financial perspective. So all of sort of the profit, the bottom line, we were able to basically fund her position before we started to fund my position, and that was just because it made sense to do so. But it didn't mean that any less work got done on either of our end. We both were able to contribute sort of 60 hours, 70 hours, I feel like, a week on top of everything else that we were doing. So again, it just comes down to you just have to figure out, I think, where you want to go, the direction that you want to go, and then you kind of choose your lumps.
Thanks for that. Much appreciated.
Thanks, guys. So I think we're coming to the end of our time. I know, again, we could probably keep going on. But if anybody has, I think there's one unanswered question. Maybe it looks like most of the panelists have posted their contact information in the chat. So if we want to, any attendees want to grab that information, I can also follow up with all attendees and folks that didn't attend at the end with that information and the link to the recording as well for follow-up. If anybody has any additional questions, I will close off here by saying hopefully everybody enjoyed this. For the attendees, keep an eye out. We're going to host more sessions like this on the RRU events site and as well as Career Roads. And I think maybe would just one last parting comment from the panelists, if anybody wants to jump in. What do you hope that the attendees and the students take away from this session?
I can start with that. So I would say just really quickly, while you do not need a business degree to be an entrepreneur, what I would say is that the biggest benefit that you get from here is you do learn things through like the BCom program. You do learn entrepreneurship. You do start a business through it. You do learn about sort of minimum viable product. And you do find ways to utilize the network that you gain from your entrepreneurial journey in the BCom program that is incredibly valuable. It's probably more valuable in many cases. You're with these folks from the very beginning right through to the end. And that sort of bond that you create with your cohort is unmatched by anything out there, in my opinion. So that's what he said I would say.
I would echo that as well. I mean, the value that I've taken from being part of a BCom program is like beyond just like the courses itself, it's the people too. And then lastly, I would just always add that like there's never the right time to start. And if you look, we have 4 different journeys and we're doing 4 different completely different things, all with different experiences. So there's never the right time to start, but you just have to start and try and see where it goes. So yeah.
I think there's 2 types of people, employees and business owners, and you're either one or the other. And if you're a business owner, you're gonna drive and make sure whatever you're undertaking is going to succeed. It's going to be harder. It's going to take longer than you think, but the perseverance and moving things forward and finding a way through those brick walls is what separates success from failure. And even a failure is not necessarily a failure if it's a lesson learned and you move forward and apply that lesson to the next problem. But it's very rewarding to be working and building something for yourself. And I find it a lot more rewarding than any position I had as an employee in my previous life. So I encourage you to, if you have that grit and that drive, lean into it. And in the end, it'll be much better than trading time for dollars.
Yeah, and I would just add that, like, if you have an idea or you've been thinking about starting a business, I think you owe it to yourself to kind of see if that's something that's actually viable. So go through those steps and try. I think there's no shame in trying and being able to fail. I think I fail weekly at this point, maybe daily, but just being able to have the tenacity to pick yourself up, rely on the right people, and just go for it would be my words of wisdom and maybe delusion. But I think that, yeah, for sure, being an entrepreneur, it's very challenging. It's a lot of long days, a lot of late nights, but building something for yourself that has a purpose and you can feel good at the end of the day is important.
Amazing. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, attendees, for joining us. Thank you, a million thank yous to the panelists for taking time out of your extremely busy lives and many hats you all wear for joining us today, because I know that's a huge gift to us. So thank you. Fabulous session. We'll follow up. Nice to see you all. Bye. Thanks, Jeff.